What would you put on the line to do what you felt was the right thing? It is a story you will see only on ABC 6. It was an integral part in getting a warming center up and running in Rochester. His name is Alex Hurlebaus, a former social worker, saying that he lost his job actually helping the homeless. Hannah Tita joins me now in studio with more on what happened. Hannah?
Betsy, Alex Hurlebaus is still doing what he loves, working with homeless people. But he's now employed by a man with a similar story.
It was kind of an unexpected thing that was fortuitous, I'd say.
Alex Hurlebaus's decision to get into social work came after his service in the Marine Corps.
2005 to 2010, and then I got out of there and I didn't really know what to do at that point.
What he did know is,
similar to when I'd gone into the Marine Corps to help people, you know, being a social worker in my mind meant helping people.
Hurlebaus was employed by the Rochester Salvation Army for 5 years, working with people who know a thing or two about tough times. It was more than a job, though. It became his purpose in life. But a little more than a month ago, he was fired.
There'd been an incident with a family, and I felt like there were steps that were needed to be taken.
The family was staying at the Dorothy Day Hospitality House.
Mom and dad struggled with some mobility issues. He received disability because he had mobility issues, you know, and this family had 3 children under the age of 6. I struggle very hard with staying neutral and not being overly invested when some of the kids were involved, because every time I worked with a child, I just saw my own little boy's face.
He says the family had secured housing that they couldn't get into for a week, but their time was up at the shelter. So Hurlebaus made a Facebook post
and asked that if they felt compelled that they reach out to this agency and say, hey, you know, would you be willing to extend this family's stay? Would you be willing to put them up just a little bit longer? And then I'd let that agency know as well that I agreed to do hotel nights from there on until that family reached their paycheck.
The post, including direct contact information for a board member at the Dorothy Day House, was up for about an hour, long enough to catch the attention of not just his Facebook friends, but his boss.
I got a call from my supervisor, not a happy call. I had my supervisor and her supervisor come into my office and let me know that I was going to be suspended pending an investigation to see if I should continue to be employed.
About a week later, he learned the news.
I was going to be fired.
Hurlebaus believes the post angered one or more board members at the Dorothy Day Hospitality House and that it triggered more than just an emotion.
So we have 2 majors for the Salvation Army in Rochester, and I think they'd reached out there and not gotten satisfaction as far as a firing. And then I was made aware that they'd taken it to the next level, which would have been divisional headquarters, which is out of the cities. And I don't know that they were given clear satisfaction there as well. The individual who finally let me know what I'd been fired for was out of the territorial headquarters, which was in Chicago, Illinois.
We reached out to the Dorothy Day Hospitality House and received this statement, which reads, in part, while we cannot comment on another organization's personnel decisions, the Dorothy Day Hospitality House is committed to collaborating with the Salvation Army and other organizations to serve the homeless community in Rochester. We also reached out to the Rochester Salvation Army and haven't heard back yet. When asked what he would do if he could do it all over,
I wouldn't have been able to go home and live with myself had I not done that. And in the end, the family actually was able to get the extension they needed, was able to stay in that housing, was able to get permanent housing. And I've been told recently that the father was able to get some kind of medical assistance wherein he now has prosthetic legs.
Now he's the social worker for the Landing MN, a new nonprofit born from a very similar situation. Last year, Dan Fifield was an ER nurse in Rochester when a family came in seeking treatment for their daughter.
They were homeless, a homeless family of 5 living in a small car. It's our first cold snap. The temperature was below 0, and the 4-year-old had frostbite on her toes.
Fifield says he made some calls to get them into housing and was reprimanded.
Subsequently, I ended up getting suspended for a couple of shifts. And that weekend, my wife and I, through a lot of discussion and everything, decided that we were going to take a very large leap of faith and follow what we felt was our calling to open the landing.
The Fifields, working to address the growing needs of the homeless population, jumped at the chance to bring a social worker on board.
He's worked with this population. He knows this population.
As for Hurlebaus, he says he harbors no resentment.
I'm as eager as ever to work with any agency that wants to work with us to help people who are struggling with homelessness, to help people who don't have a place to go, to help, you know, families with kids who bounced from couch to couch night after night. Nobody should have to live that way. And anything that's happened to me personally is never going to come in between helping those families.
We'll have the full statement from the Dorothy Day Hospitality House posted on our website. As for the landing and then, the goal is to have a day center up and running before the snow flies. We'll have information on that under featured links.